Hey folks, good morning, and thank you for joining this session.
Good morning, Deepak.
Morning, Deepak.
Good morning.
Good morning, Deepak.
Good morning.
Thanks for
everyone.
organizing the session.
Yeah, I'm quite excited to see the participation. I think this is the highest, and I've done a lot of sessions. So good to see. Where are folks joining from? Like, I hope like it's beyond Bangalore. You can put it in chat where folks are joining
I'm
from.
from US, actually. So it's pretty late for me.
Oh, sorry, where?
Yeah, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. State.
Wow, thanks for joining. Yeah, it's pretty late.
I know it's
I hope I can.
10:30 already for me.
Yeah, I hope I can make it worthwhile. Let's see. Chennai, Pune, Mumbai. Okay, then there is diversity. Good to see. We already have around 60 folks. I'll wait for maybe like 1 minute more, and then we'll start. Bhopal, interesting. Hyderabad, a lot of folks from Hyderabad. Gauri, I'm assuming you are from IIT Roorkee and not like just Roorkee, because that would be a surprise. And there is, yes, great. Good to see. We have 75 odd folks, and we'll start. Right, we'll start slightly slower, and then we'll keep we'll pace up. So I think the session is around building a strong product sense. And what I want to do is I want to do a couple of things before we start. One, I want to get a sense of the audience. So I will conduct poll, and I'll keep conducting a lot of polls, by the way, in this one. Some of them are questions, some of them are polls. So brace yourselves for a more like active learning. I don't want you to just sitting in front of a computer and just sort of listening to me. I want you to be actively participating in this. Second is you have to know like where I'm coming from, because one of the things we learn in product sense is there are limitations to even very, very experienced product leaders. And I'm not saying I'm a very, very experienced product leader, but I have had some experience that gives me confidence to talk about this topic. So I will talk a little bit around my journey so that you can map whatever I'm saying and where I'm coming from. And you can ask very specific relevant questions if there are any questions, right? So I graduated from IIT Kharagpur in chemical engineering and maths and computing. Like my major was chemical, my minor was maths and computing. Didn't do any coding in college. Didn't know like the tech companies. In fact, like we didn't go to Flipkart because we felt consulting was better at that time, like in 2012. So IIT Kharagpur went to consulting. My first product job was with Upgrad, and I was the first PM there. And in my 2.5, 3 years at Upgrad, I did almost everything. I went into like growth PMing, platform PMing, community PM. Community is now a buzzword. Like we were actually building a community at Upgrad at that time back in 2016, 17, right? So Upgrad was a very, very fulfilling sort of job for me. I eventually left after becoming director of products there. I moved to MX Player. I was there for a short while as head of growth. Again, massive user base for MX Player. So I got to learn about like how things work at like user scale, not revenue scale, which was the case with Upgrad. In Flipkart, I spent a couple of years and I led like games and gamification. So yeah, if there are folks interested in gamification, I'll be happy to take questions around that. I led the conversational AI, and now AI is catching the fever. In fact, like I'm writing a guide around ChatGPT, which should be available next month. So yeah, like I led the conversational AI, like voice search and shopping assistant for Flipkart. And then I moved to Unacademy, where I led like end-to-end user experience, including like growth, learner experience, and all that. Again, short stint at Unacademy, but that's like the overview of my professional journey as a product manager. In this journey, I've built like data teams, growth teams, product teams. I've worked with like AI products, platform products, growth products, and in general, like community products and so on and so forth, right? So the bad thing about this journey is I actually didn't stay at a company for a long period of time. The good thing about this journey is I got a lot of exposure, which I feel now is very relevant for PMs to learn from, right? So that's the professional journey. Quickly, like, again, like one of the recurring themes, if you can notice in this slide, is education. Upgrad is a tech company and Unacademy is a tech company. And many of you already know me from Growth Catalyst, which I started just during COVID or before COVID, yeah. And I think it has now 9K subscribers. A lot of people know me through Growth Catalyst newsletter. So that was my first sort of, I would say, entry into the world of like, how do we help PMs to become more effective, right? And then came Tech Simplified, which was aimed at a person like me who didn't have a tech background. Like, how do you become comfortable with tech? How do you work with engineers effectively, actually? Even if you didn't have a background in tech, right? So Tech Simplified, and I didn't expect, like I just printed 1,000 copies, but it ended up becoming a good hit, right? And right now I am working on a couple of products. One is PM Curve. Some of you may know, like PM Curve is sort of like, we started with the product growth course, which is going live next month, but there are like more things that are in covers, and I'm not revealing them because I don't want to take too much time, but right now, like it's a product growth course, but more content, community, and everything is coming together soon. And the second is a product in stealth mode in K12, which would launch somewhere around May, right? So that's what I'm currently working on. So education has been a very strong theme in my life. And the reason is because I think a little bit of personal detail so that you can connect with me. The reason is because I come from a very small town, not even a town. I come from a very small village in Chhapra, Bihar. A lot of people haven't even known like what Chhapra is. Those of you who know where Chhapra is, you can put it in chat. But yeah, I think the first 10-15 years of my life I spent there. Again, it would be alien for you to hear this, but yeah, it didn't have electricity back then. So sort of I come from a very natural place, albeit like you can say that, yeah, I didn't have even the basic amenities of education and all. And education has played a big role in my life. I went to IIT Kharagpur, it changed my life perspective, my life trajectory. And that's why like I'm so much interested in education, because I feel it's a leveler for community, right? So that's where you see my passion for entrepreneurship sort of coming from. Enough about this. We have 150 folks. Let's dive now into the session itself, right? For which you all are here. Now in this session, we are going to cover like 5 key things. One is like, why is product sense essential? What is product sense? Actually, let's start with what is product sense. Why is it essential? You would know some of it, but I'm going to get into slightly non-obvious parts, right? So just bear with me. Don't go by the name of the topic, right? The content might be different than you expect. The third is deconstructing product sense. Now, if product sense is usually like some people say it's an art, some people say you're born with it, you have to be natural at it. Some people say like it's too confusing when it comes to product sense, right? So I'm going to deconstruct product sense in like typical like mathematical fashion. Like these are the components, and this is what you need to master to be have a good product sense. Then we talk about myths around product sense, because there are like at least 2 or 3 myths I want to cover. And they also help you learn like, I think the reason for covering myths is to change the mindset, because I feel that beyond the content, mindset is more important to change. If your mindset changes, I think it will lead to a lot of good things. And then we dive majorly into how to improve product sense or how to build a strong product sense, right? Which is the most meatier part, which is like majority of this presentation. And then I have a tip to offer on how you can keep improving on product sense, a simple hack that you should start doing, right? Now, before I start, I want to get a good sense of what the audience is. I've launched a poll. You should be able to see this poll. You can just we have around 75% of people already. Great. I'm going to stop this in 10 seconds. I'm not going to take more. And okay. Now, so I'm just sharing it. Like, so we have 25% people who don't have much experience in products. And there are like early PMs, which is like 39%, 3 to 6 years is 26%, 6+ years is 10%. Brilliant. Like this is a good composition. So let's get into what is product sense, right? So the best definition, there are many definitions. The best definition that I find useful is your ability to make right decisions about what changes would bring most value to users. Now, if you're like me, you might have read Inspired by Marty Kagan. Like these are like the legacy books in product management. And one of the things that caught my eye early on while I was going through Marty Kagan book was, no matter what you do, 50% of times your product is not going to work. Or whatever you are proposing, the changes are not going to work. And it was very surprising for me because I was like, I think I could not accept it at once, but over time, like I started using it as I wouldn't say excuse, but I actually believed in it. But I started offering it as whenever somebody said that, yeah, this didn't work, this launch didn't work. I was like, yeah, but 50% of products actually don't work well. Like 50% of launches don't work well. And it continued for, I think, around a year. And I realized that it does not make a lot of sense because I know, like, I have seen people who have a high hit rate. I have seen people who have a very bad hit rate, which is like 10, 15% of their launches would kill it. So then what's the thing? And that is when it hit me. It's about averages, right? Isn't it? Like 50% is the average. Like 50% of product launches in the world actually don't create a big impact. But that does not mean that a single person cannot have a 90% hit rate and the other person cannot have a 10% hit rate. And product sense is just that variance that you see of people being right about decisions when it comes to products, on what decisions will bring more value to the users, is an indicator of product sense. So if you're looking for a person with a strong product sense, they would mostly make right decisions. If you're looking for a person with a weak product sense, they would either succeed by fluke or they will make like slightly bad decisions as compared to somebody with a strong product sense. So that is the definition of product sense. Now, if you break that down, it's usually like making the right decision and shipping them usually is a two-step process. The first is, are you able to identify the right problems and their significance? Isn't it? Like, can you figure out which problems are important and which problems are most important? Because a user can tell you like hundreds of their problems. But are you able to identify which is the most important one? Because that is going to give you the most value. And in the definition, we see most value to the users, right? So that is the first thing. The second thing is, can you design a right solution for it? And if you're able to do both, then there is no doubt that you will be able to make right decisions about what changes are going to bring most value to the end users, right? So that's the two-step process for you. And we are going to break down this two-step process into 6 steps and then sort of work towards how to improve these both steps, right? So now there is a disclaimer I wanted to put before you even get into let's say products and overarching sort of thing about product sense that you should remember, right? And that is basically, it is a field that is constantly changing. This is something from a book which was written in 1966 by a marketer around copywriting and advertising. But as you go through it, you can in your brain relate to like how to build new products. They face the same problems, right? In a field in which rules are constantly changing, where the focus that determine the outcome are constantly shifting, where new problems are constantly being encountered every day, rules, formulas, principles simply won't work. That's the first thing. Rules, formulas, principles are too rigid, too tightly bound to the past. They must be replaced by the only known method of dealing with constantly new analysis, right? Very simple, but very powerful. I want you to remember this when you're thinking about product sense, because it's a lot more about change. It's a lot more about changing the status quo, challenging the status quo. And the best products out there are built by doing that, isn't it? Because anybody who tries to create some sort of products based on their own experience in the past and all that mostly fail. That's the reason like companies of the past fail to survive the future and so on and so forth, right? But the companies who are very diligent about this sort of analysis, they're on the trends. And by the way, one of the leading examples, I would say, one of the leading examples for this is actually Facebook, right? And the reason I love Facebook is because we all remember the Snapchat frenzy that came and they introduced stories, and it was a brilliant product that even Spiegel sort of conceptualized. And Instagram or Facebook was diligent enough to actually copy those features because it understood the value of those, right? A lot of incumbents don't even understand the value of something that a new player is building, right? And it sometimes becomes too late. And we'll talk about some of those cases in Pinduoduo and JD and Alibaba and all that, right? But the point is, Facebook is a remarkable company because it actually identified the threat and dealt with it. It is facing another threat along with YouTube, which is like TikTok. Google is facing another threat, which is ChatGPT and Bing from Microsoft. But you see like the outcomes and the rules and formulas and principles of yesterday are not going to work today because things are changing too fast in a world that VPMs live in, right? And that's why you should have this in your mind always, that even if I know something, has that changed really in recently? And like, what does that mean? As long as you are doing that, you will end up building a very, very strong product sense, right? So that's like the thing that makes product sense difficult to master, but at the same time, thing that will make you a very, very strong product thinker, right? So just keep that in mind. Now, I didn't want to take like, Silicon Valley based examples of good product sense, because I feel even in India, like we have been able to build some very, very good products with strong product thinking. The first one, can you identify what this is? Like put it in chat. Yeah. Folks, you will get the video recording. I am recording it. I'll just upload it on YouTube and you should be able to receive it on YouTube. Like there is a growth catalyst, PM curve channel. You should be able to do it. COD, right? COD was an amazing invention. Like one of the remarkable things that Flipkart did with Indian startup ecosystem. And COD is the reason why e-commerce got the mainstream into India, right? Because we are a low trust society. We don't trust online products. Majority of us still don't trust sort of online products if you go into tier 2, tier 3, right? And COD sort of created that trust and sort of made you comfortable enough. And then UPI came and then other things came and things actually changed in the last 10 years. But COD was an amazing invention based on superior product thinking by Flipkart folks. This one, I think I don't need to tell you. This is like something that you all have heard about. Like this is like the voice machine of Paytm. This is again like amazingly well done, right? Like a shopkeeper needs to know whether the payment happened or not, what was the amount and all that, right? There were a lot of fraud that was happening in QR codes and payments and all that. The people were showing screenshots. And Paytm sort of solved it in a very, very unique way. And that's, by the way, like, even if like you will, if you know me personally, you would know that I'm not a big fan of Paytm's business first culture. Like, I feel that they could have done a lot better if they had built a product culture first. But at the same time, Paytm has time and again created very innovative product. Like, it started with wallets, and it went to like QR code payments, and it came to this one. So Paytm has been at least innovating a lot of good products in India, right? Yes. So those are like India. So in fact, like, Indian PMs are now building very original solutions for India first products. And it's very refreshing to see, right? And it was inevitable in some way, but we are like 10, 15 years into product management in India, and we are already seeing this. So good to see that, right? Now that you know what product sense is, what I want, you must have seen like Amazon leadership principles, right? In case you don't know, I'll explain it to you, the ones that I have put here. Customer obsession is basically you're obsessed about customers. Leaders are right a lot is basically, they say that leaders take right decisions a lot of times, right? Think big is you have to think big. You don't have to optimize. You don't have to sort of think small when it comes to Amazon. Think big and come with bigger initiatives. And fourth is highest standards means that your design should be amazing. Your the software qualities should be amazing. Everything like delivery should be amazing. So insist on highest standards, right? So if you understand these four options, I want you now to apply what you have learned around product sense. And I want to tell you, I want you to tell me actually on which of these is closest to product sense now that you have known the definition.
I would say customer obsession.
Mank, you can vote. There should be a voting option in front of you. You can vote. Okay, we have majority of folks have already done this. Just for the group's interest, I will go back to the definition. And this is what I think this is what people get wrong. I'll share the results with you. So we said, you know, even I actually conducted a LinkedIn poll around this also, and the results were similar. And I thought that after I explain what product sense is, the results might be different, but they're still the same. And I'm happy to debate and discuss, by the way. This is a evolving area, right? So it's not that whatever I say is a like binary 1 or 0. It's slightly in gray area. But let's understand the definition, right? And then let's come to option. Ability to make right decisions. That is the center of product, right? Now, when you say ability to make right decisions, Sandeep, can you mute yourself? Okay. When you say ability to make right decisions about which changes would bring most value to the users, customer obsession is a tool to it. Right? Customer obsession is a tool to it because customer obsession helps you understand problems. And that is one of the tools, by the way. But leaders are right a lot is closest to the product sense. Do you understand like what I'm trying to say? Product sense is eventually about making the right decisions, isn't it? If you make the right decision, you will be right a lot. You will be making most of the times the right decisions. So your hit rate will improve, right? Because if in a year you are making 10 decisions and 9 of them are correct, that is happening because you have now a strong product sense. Customer obsession is one of the inputs, as we will see, by the way. When we break the two-step process, you will see that in the first step, customer obsession plays a major role. It helps you identify problems. But imagine for a moment like this. Let me rephrase in a different way. If customer obsession or customer insight would have been the primary thing in product sense, wouldn't researchers or people who are support folks would have the best product sense? Researchers, user researchers, and support folks or sales folks should have the best product sense, isn't it? But why are PMs then supposed to have product sense? Because those people are talking 24/7 to customers. They are understanding their problems. They are dealing with them. They are researching with them. They are also trained in human psychology. Like researchers are trained to understand human psychology a lot better than PMs. So researchers should have the strongest product sense, but that's not true. PMs have the strongest product sense, which means just by mathematical induction, which means that customer obsession plays a role in product sense, but that is not the whole of product sense. If you have a strong product sense, you will be making a lot of right decisions. You will be right a lot. And that is why leaders are right a lot. That is the Amazon principle that ties back to the product sense or business sense for that matter, if this is a business leader, right? Cool. I'm happy to take more questions towards the end, but feel free to. Let's.
So Deepak, I have one question before we move on. So this is.
Mayank, can you put, so just for the sake of, groups sanity, because sometimes what happens is there's a lot of back and forth. If you put it in chat, I'll definitely pick it up even now, or I'll at least make sure that I'll pick it towards the end.
Sure,
that way,
you.
like I'll be able to record everybody's concerns and I'll be able to also solve it.
Sure, thanks, Deepak.
Yeah. Now there is one good question, right? Pushkar has like talking to customers and gathering feedback does not equate to customer obsession. Customer obsession is about making right choices from customer POV, right? But again, Pushkar, you can, if you define customer obsession equal to product sense in that way, that you are making the right choices from customer POV, right? Then of course, like it becomes product sense, but even then it's incomplete, as we will see. Because you need to understand industry, you need to understand competition, you need to understand business, you need to understand marketing. Product sense is not just like understanding the needs of the customers and just solving, right? But in a way, like if you start defining customer obsession as basically solving the problems for customers, right? That encompasses in everything almost, isn't it? Like you're right, you will be right a lot. You'll insist on highest standards. You'll have bias for action. You'll have ownership. You will invent and simplify. From that definition, everything goes into customer obsession. Then customer obsession does not remain one of the leadership principles. It becomes the whole like putting leadership principles of Amazon. But that's not true, right? So which is why like the way we most interpret customer obsession is basically you are obsessed about customers' needs and preferences and talking to them, understanding them and all that. Right? The way we understand leaders are right a lot is of the 10 decisions that you make, how many are actually correct? Right? So that's how I will bifurcate that. Let's get to the second point. I will take this question from, I feel, I think there are a lot of good questions. I will take them one by one, but I would just say like, just hold on. Almost all of your questions are going to get answered in some of the things that I'm going to cover, right? But I will come back to these questions once we are towards like 12:30, and I'll take some questions which are not answered yet, right? But just have some patience. I know like I'm trying to sort of introduce something new, so it can create a lot of unease. It will break a lot of your beliefs, but just hold on, just have patience, right? Now, I think just to understand how essential product sense was, I sort of conducted a survey with Growth Catalyst readers. And like, what do you realize? This was basically saying that in your company, maybe it's a small company, large company, mid company, and like the participants actually came from mostly like smallish startups and bigger companies also. which rounds get conducted. And you won't believe, like, product design or problem solving, and mostly it was product design, gets conducted in 100% of PM interviews. So first thing first, I think if you had to add like a single motivation to understand product sense, it would be that you'll be able to crack interviews, including like startups, to sort of FANG. In fact, in FANG, if you go to Google or let's say Facebook, they put a lot of emphasis on like your product sense or product design. Like, do you actually understand how to identify problems and then how to ship the right solutions for them? If you do those rounds very well, rest everything is I would say rest everything is a formality, right? So it's very essential because, again, it will appear in every interview that you give. And it's very essential. And the reason it appears in every interview that you give is because it gets applied every day in the life of the PM, isn't it? Like, the reason it's a part of interviews is not because we want to assess something, assess your intelligence or something. We want to assess this particular thing, at least in product sense case, because it's part of everyday job of a PM. Every day you have to make decisions, and you have to make sure you make the right decisions from a customer point of view, from a business point of view, right? So it's very essential that way. There are other names for product sense that you should just remember. And I like some of these names better, by the way, because they don't create mystic. So product thinking, for example, Flipkart conducts product thinking rounds. There's product judgment in some of the companies, like I think Intercom conducts product judgment. They use the term product judgment, not product sense, product thinking. And a lot of companies, including Google, actually use product design round. But product design is not actually a design round. It's more of a product sense or product thinking round, right? So these are various names of product sense, but it's essentially the same thing, right? It's essentially being right about the product decisions a lot of times. So second reason you should be, second reason you should focus or strengthen your product sense is because it can be applied to everything. And I will give you 2 examples from my life, right? So I think from my jobs, I think there is some confidentiality agreement because of which I can't reveal the details. But I'm very comfortable with talking about things that I have done myself because I have full authority to reveal around that, right? So when I say product sense can be applied to everything, I think the first example that I give a lot of people is the book that I wrote, which is Tech Simplified. Now, while I was writing the book, I'll give you like what I did very quickly. I actually conducted a live cohort, which was more of a beta testing ground with 30 folks to gauge the demand. So I wanted to make sure that people actually want tech in simple language. So can I gauge the demand? And I actually got like all the organic applications, people came in, people attended session, they paid money and all that, and the demand is validated. And then I tested the whole content throughout that 2-month sessions, right? Which is sort of beta testing, applying beta testing to sort of book development. The other things which started from problems, for example, one of the things which a lot of traditional publishers advised me is keep the price of the book around 300 to 400 rupees. But I looked at the TG. I said that TG does not have a paying problem. I looked at the experience of the book and I was like, I have to print it in, colored print, because colored print is better to understand these concepts, system design, and a lot of things. The readability improves a lot. So that was the genesis behind sort of doing a colored printing and then going via a higher price, which is like 700, 800 rupees, right? And it actually worked out. The reason is because, again, making those decisions from a lens of customers, market, and consumer psychology, isn't it, right? So that was the second decision. Few more decisions actually came in handy, which is like understanding what is the key problem with understanding tech, right? And the key problem with understanding tech that I found was all the tech literature is written by techies and consumed by techies. Now, these people have done 4 years of undergraduate courses in colleges. So if you go to Wikipedia and if you read about software testing, for example, what you realize is you end up reading an article which is written in a very theoretical manner at a very, very complex level. And normal folks who don't have a software engineering background would not be able to do that, right? Which is why one of the things that you see, like one of the USPs of this book was written at an 8th grade level. Like anybody who is 13 or 14 years old and has basic English knowledge can read this book. Now, all of these are problem identification and making decisions around it, isn't it? All of these start from consumers, start from consumer problems. And this, I'm talking about writing a book, which is a very different sort of product development compared to a software development. Another thing, for example, like I didn't publish a Kindle version because I was like, it won't give me a good sense of how many books are sold because piracy is big in the initial market that I'm getting. Right? Again, a very unconventional decision. People might say that, okay, you lose distribution, this, that. None of that happened because the need was real. And like, I knew that reading it in a hardcover would be a much better experience. So, wow, I see a lot of chats, right? This is like behind the scenes of like how product sense gets applied to even writing a book. And I'll come to the next example, but I have already covered not launching an ebook, piracy and all. System design, by the way, there is a question around system design. This is like, it covers system design and covers almost as good as some of the books that are written by practitioners like Alex Zhu. He writes system design. He has written a couple of system design books. You can check them. But this book will serve enough for any PM who is looking after like learning system design, DevOps, and even basics of sort of tech. Right. The second thing which I landed upon, the problem that I was thinking around is product courses. So I've done a lot of courses. I've done like Reforge, like you name almost all courses around PM, I would have done them in some form or other, right? And one of the, I think when I was thinking of creating a PM course, the problem that I was facing is there are like the jobs to be done for the customer. Again, the problems for them actually lie in 4 areas. The first is cracking PM roles. The second is, and some of you might go and start something on this.
For a 4-year-old boy,
It's all about.
That's right, is it? Come maybe.
Yes. So the first problem for the PMs is cracking PM roles. The second is they need to get promoted in their jobs and they need to create impact to do that, isn't it? The third is they need to crack senior roles, especially FANG roles. Like people who join startup, they want to get into FANG. People who join Flipkart, they want to get into FANG. People who join startup, they want to get into Flipkart. So it's always up-leveling yourself, isn't it? And the fourth is they have to ensure that they can apply and they can solve the problems basis what they have learned. Now, if you are a person who is applying the product's sense lens to it, the most diverse, like the problem with the largest volume is cracking PM roles, right? Is there a reason you would not go for solving cracking PM roles? Put it in chat. So of the 4 problems, cracking PM roles has the highest volume, right? So everybody wants to crack PM roles. It's almost like a much higher demand, it's a course which is much higher in demand as compared to other things, right? But cracking PM roles is very competitive, and which is where, like, if you're a PM, you start thinking on what is my advantage going to be in this one, right? There are a lot of courses around cracking PM roles, both like at lower cost end and higher cost end. I'm not saying like it's just like very expensive. There are courses which are very cheaper also, like I think the Next Leap course of 10,000 rupees and so, right? So it's too much competitive. What about the other things? Like, is anybody solving that? Like, is anybody solving for impact? Is anybody solving for cracking senior roles? There are some people who are solving for cracking senior roles, like Shreyas course is there, and there are a couple of more courses. Are there people who are solving for like application of what you learn in a course? Because most of the times, just like in this one, you are going to attend this session live and you are going to feel good, and then you are going to forget all of it. And what use is that, right? So my goal was then as a PM, I identify that the 2, 3, 4 are actually white spaces. Job promotions, because you have to generate impact, cracking senior roles and ensuring that they can apply whatever they learn when need be, right? And then if you move to the solution space after identifying the problem, here are the things that you'll, and I'm going to spend a couple of minutes on this because I want you to actually go through a nuanced thought process that I went through and understand like where product sense helps, right? Because the rest of it is theory. This is where like I am actually testing the product sense rather than just like talking about it, right? So building your own growth plan and get it audited. This is one of the value offering I built into, let's say, a product growth course, right? Because if you build your own growth plan and get it audited by me, who has a lot of experience in creating growth plan, it's going to get better, right? And there is a good chance that you'll generate impact. The second is, can you cover frameworks for product thinking, data execution, leadership, A/B testing, all these things around, which are essentially growth or like senior product leadership topics in this course, right? And then the whole syllabus can be crafted according to that, right? So this is not a, like, I would say, this is not a big deal. Like when you understand that you have to build something which covers all this, you would be able to build it, right? So you add frameworks for product thinking, data execution, leadership, and all this into the course, right? How do you ensure that they apply when they need to apply, right? So here you need to go into research and you need to understand that people need to answer few questions to apply. For example, if I would have moved from just product sense definition without asking you that question in the beginning, most of you would have not thought, oh, customer obsession is one of the ingredients of product sense, but it's not the whole product sense. And that's what happens in at least professional education, which is like people have a lot of biases ingrained in them. And as instructors, it's our job to take out those biases and say that, no, you have to answer this question. And let me see if you can actually answer the question in the right way. And let's debate and discuss over that, because you're going to learn more from this than any theory that I'm going to teach, right? Which is why like you add, let's say I added a lot of objective questions in every session, around 10 to 15 objective questions. And you'll see some questions in this session also to make sure that people learn and apply themselves. Case studies, which is a very obvious thing, isn't it? Like in a PM field, you have to add a lot of case studies. And then finally, to apply the learning of the course, the capstone project, which is like a three week long in this particular course, is on real data. And I will tell you like what real data is. A real data is like this. I'm actually giving access to database. Like we are doing a case study on Zomato, and there is a team like Satish team, which has put all these data requests, and they are getting this data from me. Now here, again, the thing is I'm not giving them all the data. I'm helping them. I'm saying, you ask these questions to me and I'll give you data. You ask the retention curves. You ask location-based data of daily active, new users, daily customer, W4, W8, and all that. Sorry, something else. You ask hyperpure data, you ask dining data, and I'm going to give it to you. This is exactly how real life works, isn't it? If you are going to be a VP at some place, you are going to go there, you are going to analyze a new product, you are going to ask for data from analyst, you're going to analyze that data, you're going to get insights, you're going to build a growth plan, and finally present it to the leadership. And if you look at now this, what product sense helped me do is identify the ones in green are very original ideas. Like they don't happen in any of the courses across the globe. And the only reason I could do it is because I started with the customer problems. I use the same framework that I'm going to teach you. And I arrived at some of the solutions, which is like you build your own growth plan using this template. Like this is a template you can see. PMF story, retention, North Star, growth modeling, acquisition, retention. You create this growth plan, and then I'm going to tell you where you went wrong. You learn all the frameworks in product thinking, data execution, leadership. You answer objective questions to make sure you remember everything. You do case studies, and you finally real data capstone project, isn't it? And this is, if I had to sort of tell you one thing to take from this session, this will be this. Like, how can you apply product thinking to everything that you do? Because once you start doing that, there's no looking back. You'll become a very, very strong product thinker very soon. Right? Now I can answer about some of the questions around the course towards the end, but I'm not going to take them in between. You can go and check pmcurve.com. The applications for next cohort are open. They are going to close by tomorrow or so. So if you like it, go for it. If you don't like, don't worry too much. We are going to cover product science. Now, deconstructing products. Let's get into, now we understand what product sense is. Where can it be applied? Why is it important? So we are super convinced on this thing, which looks like a very, very interesting thing, right? Now let's look at how do you deconstruct this whole thing? Because unless you deconstruct, we will be sort of roaming in definitions. Like we will be talking about customers, we'll be talking about market, we'll be talking about industry. We want a very structured framework to sort of solve this thing, right? Now, the structured framework is like, if I look at the first step, what do I need to identify problems and their significance? There are three things that I need to do. The first is I need to understand users. The second is I need to understand the current industry and business models. And the third is I need to have frameworks, mental models or frameworks, whichever term you understand and comfortable with, to identify your frame problems. Because problem framing, as we will see, is also a big area of improvement for most of PMs, right? There's a difference between tactical problems, strategic problems. There's a difference between tactical problems, jobs to be done, and all that, right? So you need to understand users, you need to understand industry, frameworks to sort of identify problems, right? So that is the problem space. What about the solution space? What do you need to come up with solutions? The first thing that you need to come up with solutions is you need to understand all the tools to solve a software problem, which is growth, tech, design, all three of them, right? The second is you need to have range of knowledge to find analogies from similar problems others have solved. If you're building a marketplace and if you don't understand how Thumbtack or Airbnb grew and why their strategies was different. Thumbtack took a very different strategy. They went to all geographies as compared to Airbnb, which constrained itself in one geography and then gradually expanded, right? If you don't understand those nuances, you will find it difficult to find analogies in a marketplace that you're building in India. So you need to build a range of knowledge to come up with solutions, the right solutions from similar problems that you have seen in other places. Otherwise, like it will be a lot more difficult for you to have the right hit rate. And the third thing is creativity to get original solutions. Now, I wouldn't say it's all science. I'd never said that. Creativity, this last part is where people confuse product sense with an art. People confuse product sense with a natural talent. People confuse product sense with a lot of things. Because creativity, we tend to believe, is something which is natural, innate. I'm going to tackle that myth also, but I don't want to go fast, right? So 6 things we discussed. You understand customers, you understand industry, you have the right problem framing tools in the problem space. In the solution space, you get the right analogies, you understand the tools required to solve the problem, and finally, you get creative to find some original solution, right? That's the... Now let's tackle some of the myths around product sense. First is you are born with product sense. And this usually happens because we see a seasoned leader, like let's say Shreyas or Lenny or a lot of folks in India. I think Deepak is here in the audience. He's a very, very strong, experienced growth leader, right? So we see people like these. And then we are like, okay, they can just think and come up with some of the solutions we could not. So they must be having this product sense, isn't it? Like they have a very strong product. They must be having this product sense. And which is why we believe that, okay, you are natural. This person is natural with product sense. This person is not in all that. But the problem that happens in this sort of is like, if you go to this book called Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman explained 2 systems of thinking. And 95% of time, system 1 works, 5% of times system 2 works. The system 1 is very, very instinctive, very, very intuitive, very, very fast. System 2 is very slow. It analyzes the situation, it's logical. You also get into analysis paralysis and all that. So at work, when you are analyzing the data, that's systems 2. At work, when you are just taking a decisions that this button does not look right, that's system 1. Right? Now, experienced leaders, the system 1 is also built on your experience from the past, isn't it? And an experienced leader, they have talked to a lot of customers, they have built a lot of products, they have talked to a lot of business leaders, they have been monitoring the industry trend for a long period of time. And because of it, their system 1 is much, much, much more evolved as compared to you. And that's the only difference. We confuse system 1 with natural ability, with instinct, like which people are born with, but that's not true. It's just experience, which they find hard to explain. They're like, okay, no, it just seemed right to me. I think we should go in this direction. But the matter of the fact is they can't backtrack it to all the data points they've consumed throughout their life. And that whole thing is coming as a synthesis to them, right? Now, of course, like I wouldn't go on a stretch and say that everybody has the same sort of product intuition. There are some people who will be naturally better at it, just like it happens in writing, just like it happens in playing cricket or anything in life. But that definitely means that if you work on it for a long period of time, you will become a much, much better product thinker as compared to somebody who is just winging it, believing that they actually have product sense, right? The second myth that I want to tackle is people saying product science is an art and not science, right? Now, I'm not going to discuss and debate on this. I'm just going to ask you a simple question. We talk about these 6 things, isn't it? These 6 are the components of product sense. And this is a multiple choice question. You have to tell me which one of them, which of them is art, right? Understanding users, understanding current industry and business models, frameworks to identify problems, understanding tools, range of knowledge to find analogies, creativity to get original solutions. I will take like 20 more seconds and close the poll.
Oi, oi. Gulu, oi. Halip, oi. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to share the results. As you can see, majority of you, like 85% of the people who voted, have voted like creativity, which is definitely in that area. Rest of them, again, I'll give you one tenet to sort of map things in when in debate. And which is why you won't see like me talking about binary. This is right, this is wrong. The thing is, think of maths, right? Or think of software engineering, which is very objective in nature. The best software engineers or the best mathematicians are also artists in a sense. And when I say best, I'm talking about 0.1001%, like Ramanujan or Hardy, or like these sort of folks. They're almost like artists. They're not writing code or solving maths. Like their brain is so much more evolved that it's almost like a form of art. No one else can, like most of us cannot compete with them, even if we keep devoting our life to that pursuit, right? So when you say that understanding users is a art, right? I want you to answer the second level question, which is like, is it majority of it is an art or majority of it is actually science? And then you might come up with a different answer saying that, oh, majority of this is science. I have to like do it systematically, and I would be able to, I have to read some books around like research and all, and I'll be able to do it. And that is a bifurcation you have to keep putting on all the questions. And that is where you arrive that barring creativity, which definitely categorizes as an art, all of them are actually science. Or sciencey, which is like 80%, 70%, 90% of that whole skill is actually science and can be learned, is learnable, and can be done, right? So given that only one of these 6 things is sort of science, right? Isn't like product sense more of science and not an art, right? And I will just tackle one thing which Deepak sort of posted. One man's science is another man's art. It's pretty amazing. Like, I love poetry, so I'm going to sort of enjoy this. But at the same time, in today's session, the way I want to differentiate science from art is something which is more innate, more natural, hard to explain, hard to learn. Science is, you can deconstruct it, you can learn it. It's a learnable skill. You can get better at it with time. You can get better at it as you put in more hours and all that, right? So we are talking about whether it's learnable by putting in or deconstructing it or not, right? Tech is, for example, from that matter, very sciencey because you can deconstruct it, you can learn it. You can learn about current industry. You can learn how to define problems and all that. A part of it, the last mile might be like slightly arty, but most of it is science, right? So that's the definition I want you to keep in head. The third is the myth, which is like people with strong product sense are right about products, right? So if this person has strong product sense, let's go to them for advice for our own startup or for our own product. After all, they have a very strong instinct. And this is the fallacy. Like, even if I know people who discard myth 1 and myth 2, they are like, no, you can learn product sense, you can be better at product sense. They still fall for this third one. I see founders going to strong product leaders and asking for their advice. But again, this is a myth. And the reason for this myth is product sense is very, very domain dependent, right? You have to be careful in applying what you know to a different domain at a different time also. Suppose I worked in e-commerce in 2015. I cannot apply my learnings in 2022 because the domain has changed significantly. Video commerce is on rise, social commerce is on rise, was on rise at least till Misho pivoted to a different model. But it's very domain dependent. It's very time dependent. And which is why, like, people with strong product sense, when we say, we have to define the domain in which they have a very strong product sense. In their current jobs, they might have product sense. In few other things, they might have good product sense. But they cannot be right about all domains, all products. Or else, like, there will be very fewer jobs for PMs, isn't it? And just a corollary to that is avoid like the time, yesterday's advice, industry, customers, all of them changes, right? So someone's product sense about something might be true like 5 years back, but might not be true today, right? So keep asking this question. Is it true today? Is it true today? Is it relevant to this domain that I'm applying my learning from the other domain or not? That said, there are a few things which are transferable, right? Which don't change with time. And we are going to tackle that in the next question. Now, this is a pretty, I would say, controversial one because why can't I launch? Okay, there is some issue with the polls I have. Give me 1 moment. Okay, I have to stop sharing. So tell me this thing, which of these don't change with time? Which of these don't change with time? And while you are answering these questions, in a way, like, I feel that you are changing your beliefs in some way or other, isn't it? I won't take much time. I will take just 10 more seconds and I'll go to like the meatier part. I think we have covered most of the things except like how do you build product sense. We'll get to that. I'll end the poll. I'll share the results, right? So again, the majority is sort of getting in the right direction. Frameworks to identify problems, they don't change much, right? Because even if they can evolve a little bit, but the rate of their change is very different as compared to the industry rate, or even users. For example, in users, their psychology and basic instincts don't change, but their taste or preferences may change over time when new products get introduced, right? So industry is least, which I'm very happy with because industry changes the fastest. Users is after that, which is again true. Tools also change, but again, not at the rate of, let's say, industry. And range of knowledge also changes, but not at the rate of, let's say, industry or users. And then frameworks is last. So I think the ordering is pretty correct, right? The most change happens in industry, followed by, let's say, the range of knowledge, followed by users, followed by frameworks, followed by tools, and so on and so forth. So let's move to the part which is how to build strong product sense. Now, what I want you to do is, again, with me, I will again keep applying whatever we are covering. What I want you to do is think of, we are building a workout product where users, and this is an online workout product. We are building maybe an app or a website where users can choose their preferences and they can start exercising virtually. Right? So you're sitting in your home, you can start doing exercises by turning this workout mode on and just following that, right? Just keep that in mind while we are covering this. So the first part, which is understanding users, right? Now, in understanding users, you have to do few things. The first thing is you have to understand behavioral economics. The second is you have to understand data of your product. The third is you have to talk to customers directly. And this is very, very important. You talk to them directly. And the fourth is you need to be comfortable with segmenting users to map needs or preferences. Let's cover them one by one. The first one is behavioral economics. And if you have to understand this, you should go and just read the Bible around it, which is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. But behavioral economics is ultimately saying that we are not rational beings, and which is why, like, sometimes first principles don't work. Because we are not rational beings. It's not 1 + 1 = 2 for humans, right? So in that case, behavioral economics sort of has done a lot of studies to show that what matters for us. For example, like we are very loss averse. We don't like to lose something. So if we had to gain $100 and lose $100, the pain caused by losing $100 is twice the joy gained by gaining $100, right? So the pain is double of the joy that you gain by losing or gaining the same quantity, right? So all these are very non-linear concepts, and a PM should understand it to appreciate the world, right? Another amazing book around sort of non-linearity of the world is Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. That book almost feels like a poetry when you read it, right? And very, very true, very, very realistic sort of observations around the world and all that, right? So to understand users, you first have to understand behavioral psychology, behavioral economics. That's the first thing. The second thing is you have to understand data. You have to understand the funnels, cohort, biases, North Star, and a lot of things. Again, I'm not going to get into super specific how, but I'm going to suggest you some courses. Like you can go to Growth Catalyst. You can look at, like, there's a product growth series, and I've written like 3 or 4 articles around analytics. So you can start there. You can go and read How to Lie with Statistics, which is an amazing book to deal with fallacies in data, or like how people twist data to sort of fit to their narratives and all that, right? And you'll be much wiser after reading this book. Like if you see, right, Bill Gates has written some recommendation on top of this book's page. It's an amazing book. And then to get into more details, you can then supplement it with Lean Analytics, which is more application first book. If you do like these 2 or 3 things, you would be able to understand data very, very well, right? Let's move to the next thing, which is talking to them directly. Now, the biggest mistake that product leaders do. Oh, you lost me for a minute. Okay. Are you able to hear me now? Okay. Yeah, so I'll just quickly cover. So on the last page, we said that to understand users, we started with behavioral economics, behavioral psychology, and there is a resource to master it. To understand data, there are few resources, right? You can go to the blog, read few blog posts if you don't have much time. In the next 3 to 4 months, I would suggest you read How to Live with Statistics and Lean Analytics if you haven't done that, right? The third is understanding users and talking to them directly. Now, in this one, the biggest mistake that I see with a lot of big company PMs is in startups, PMs actually go and talk to people because they don't have a research team. They don't have people who would go and talk on their behalf. They don't have that sort of budget. But in bigger companies, you have a research team which does the talking to customers and doing all of that. And they will in the end do a presentation of 2 hours to the PM team and all that. If you want to build products and see, if you want to build products, simple products, basis the observations and basics, the survey, I think it does a decent enough job, right? But if you want to build a strong product sense, you have to talk directly to consumers. There's no going around that. Because when you talk to customers, you start building new, I would say, neural connections of understanding those users. And that does not happen in a summarized presentation that you are presented. When you talk to customers, there are millions of data points, invisible data points that you are consuming, including their expression, their micro expressions, their setting, their tone. Everything is a data point for you. And it's much richer data as compared to you sitting in an AC room and sort of seeing what is happening on the screen, right? So talk to consumers directly. This is the biggest mistake that product leaders do, because after a while they move to management positions, they stop doing it. This is the biggest mistake even early PMs do, because they rely on a research team's synthesis, right? The second mistake that people do is similar to this, which is they talk to support or they talk to sales. And they're like, oh, but we talk to support, who then talk to customers. So we know the problems with customers. By the way, working as a support person for one day is 100 times more effective than talking to support people. Again, the same reason. Your neural connections that form while doing that are much, much richer and powerful as compared to you taking a download from somebody else. And a great book around this, this is the only book I would recommend, because I can recommend 100 books and you're not going to go through it. I'll recommend a single book that you should read, the Mom Test. It helps you remove your biases when you're talking to consumers. It helps you make sure that you're not asking them leading questions. You're not asking them wrong questions, right? Because asking the right questions is half the game done when it comes to talking to consumers, right? So the Mom Test is an amazing book. You should definitely go through it if you want to understand. The last thing to understand users is segmentation. Again, in segmentation, the early PMs start going after demographic segmentation, which is again a fallacy. For PMs, psychographics is more important. And what psychographic is more behavioral. For example, Netflix does this, a lot of work around recommendations. And one of the things that they found in the recommendation engine was a person sitting in India could be very, very similar to a person sitting in the US. And a person sitting in US, California could be very different to their neighbor in California, even if they're of the same age, same gender, same place, right? And the reason for this is because the needs and preferences of people are very different. The behaviors are different. So rather than segmenting people on salary, gender, age, location, if you start segmenting them on behaviors, one, you will reduce the number of segments because behaviors are pretty consistent and you can easily identify top 2-3 behaviors. And second, you would have a much more creative brain, because when I tell you that this workout person is lazy and often misses the gym, you can become a lot more creative than when I tell you this person is 40 to 45 years of age, lives in a posh society and has a 9-to-5 job. What do you do with that segmentation? You can't be creative with that segmentation. But when I tell you this person is lazy, does not go to gym, has paid for gym membership and all that, I'm talking about behavior. So behavioral segmentation is much more effective compared to, let's say, a demographic segmentation. Now, coming to the workout product, coming to the workout product, what I want you to answer is, which segmentation would make sense for this product? I'll take 5 more seconds. And I will end poll. So yeah, we are there. I think psychographic segmentation is what we have to go after. Demographic is useful. I'm not saying demographic is not useful, but psychographic is where you should start as a PM if you want to build and be creative in building products. The second thing, let's go around is understanding industry. And I have gone through a lot of nonfiction business books. Most of them are noise. The only thing that I have found useful in understanding industry is Porter 5 forces. But the biggest problem with Porter 5 forces is almost everyone who has gone to B school or has become a PM has heard about it and read an article about it. But that's not enough. Because Michael Porter, like he wrote this whole like competitive strategy. This is a book that must be lying somewhere. It's easily a 500 pages book, and it just talks about these 5 forces, right? And the reason for that is the applications for these 5 forces are much richer, right? I'll quickly explain for those of you who don't understand this. So what it says is that the Porter's premise was to understand an industry. You have to understand 5 different things about an industry. And then you can define whether the industry is attractive or not, whether you should enter into that industry or not. The first is bargaining power of suppliers, which is like the people who are supplying whatever you are selling, how much power do they have? For example, if you have a single supplier in the whole world, they will have too much power in their hands, right? Bargaining power of buyers, like do buyers have a lot of options or do they don't have any option, right? Because in that case, you have a lot of power for buyers, you can price it premium. But if buyers have a lot of options, you can't price it premium, right? Threat of substitute products, like what are the substitutes? For example, for flights, Zoom is a substitute product. For offline classes, online like Zoom sessions are a substitute products. Threat of new entrants, like how easy is it for somebody to sort of enter into that market very, very easily, right? Because if they can enter into the market very easily, a lot of people will enter into that market and that becomes a threat. And the final thing is how intense is the competition in this particular market, right? And he wrote an entire book like competitive strategy around this, explaining a lot of use cases, sort of case studies, history, and even going into nuances of these different elements, right? So my question to this is, if you are applying this whole thing into if you're applying the Porter 5 forces to a virtual workout industry, which of them will be true? Like, is this a multiple correct? Yeah. Which of them will be true? Amazing. I've got a very intelligent group here. 10 more seconds, folks. I'm going to end this poll. So okay. Again, I think directionally the group is right, which is like there is intense competition because there is low barriers to entry. There are a lot of workout products out there because people can just create these products and they can find like trainers to just shoot the videos or sort of create a syllabus around what is a workout and all that. So bargaining power of suppliers is also low because suppliers are mostly like gym trainers or people who get the workout done. the bargaining power for buyers is low is not correct because people have lots of options. So they can choose between any of the options that are available. And then there are a lot of substitute products because people can go to gym, they can go to swimming, they can go to dance, they can go to cult fit. There are a lot of options, substitute available for this. They can go for running also or sports. So again, I've got a very intelligent group here. So that's basically understanding industry, right? So if you want to understand industry, like if you can just drill down on those 5 factors, you'll be able to understand the structure of the industry and how attractive is the industry. The third is problem framing, and problem framing, I think most of you would know. So I'm going to quickly skip this sort of portion, right? So first is you have to frame the problem with users, not from your point of view, not with a solution. Like the biggest fallacy that you see with PMs and entrepreneurs is, I have an idea, but that idea is a solution. Like it does not start at a problem. And even if it starts as a problem, there is no sense of whether it's a vitamin or a painkiller or. So if you start with the user, you'll be able to determine if it is a real pain point for the user. And it's not just an idea or solution that you have, that you are excited about, right? So that's the first fallacy to avoid in framing problem. Always frame the problem from the user point of view. The other fallacy that PMs do is framing problem from a business point of view. We want to launch this category because we want to increase revenue. Again, you want to increase revenue, it says nothing about the end users, right? So start with a problem from a user's perspective. Don't start from a business perspective or from a solution perspective, and you'll be able to frame the problems in the right manner. The second is asking 5 whys. For example, if you encounter a problem, right? Somebody says that they want to create their own business. You might stop there and say that, okay, the problem is people are not able to start business, right? If I have to frame that problem. But if I keep asking, why do they want to start business? They want to have greater control. Why do they want to have greater control? Because they want more flexibility. Why do they want to do it? Because they want to work from home. Why do they want to do it? Because they want to spend more time with their daughter or son. And why do they want to do it? Because supporting the family is their core value and sits above the jobs that they do. So rather than sort of focusing on creating, people are not able to create their own business, people want to own their business. Now you have graduated to a much deeper problem, which is like, how can we help people support their family? And this is, by the way, a lot of hiring managers also get it wrong. Like they're like, okay, people don't want to work from office because they are lazy or they don't want to, they are just chilling at home. But that's not true. The problem could be that they have something else going in their life, which is important. They want to do good work, and both is possible only when they're working from home. So this fallacy, like asking the why can help you with a lot of good problem framing in everything that you work for. Like I said, like whatever we learn for product sense can be applied to everything in the life, including your jobs, including your personal life and all that. And the third is often like popularized jobs to be done framework, right? Which is like, people don't want to buy, let's say, skates in this example. They want to appear cool in front of their peers. And if you solve the problem of them appearing cool in front of their peers, maybe you'll create a video course, which is packaged with the, let's say, this thing, or you will sell them some training for first 15 days so that they can learn how to skate and all that, right? But no player has done it because a lot of people, they just stop it. Okay, people want to buy skates. But the jobs to be done is not like getting skates in their homes. The jobs to be done is impressing their peers, impressing their parents and all that. Can you be, and the moment you understand it, you can frame the problem more holistically. You can come up with a much richer solution as compared to like just selling skates or building a better version of skates, isn't it? So all these problem framing frameworks actually help you identify the root problem, the holistic problem, and that will eventually help you become much more creative than anything else, right? I'm going to skip this because we are slightly tight for timeline, but yeah, you can think about like, what would be the problem now that you know these frameworks? How do you define the problem for online workout product? Should it be like convenience? Should it be like saving money? Should it be something else? You have to think about that. Now we are in the last leg of this session, which is like finding a solution. And finding a solution, again, I'm going to be more indicative or directional here, right? So for example, like if you want to design a solution in tech, you need to understand how tech works, which is like how coding works and how design works. Because first you have to design the solution and second you have to code the solution. Somebody has to code the solution. As a PM, if you don't understand these two things, you are managing something you don't understand. And that's a very, very dangerous line. So you should understand what you're managing. And because you're managing the output software product, you should understand the tools that are required to design that solution. You don't need to be a coder. You don't need to be a designer, but you should understand the UX principles. You should understand how technical architecture works and all those things, right? Now, some of the best things, best resources around like understanding tech is one is Mythical Man Month. This is a very old book. And there are essays on software engineering, not coding, software engineering. There's other book around DevOps and like what should you do when project slows down? How do you manage the project? Best book on project management and DevOps, which is a Phoenix project. And then there is Tech Simplified, which was the white space that I discovered and I wrote on how do you understand tech from basics to system design, right? So these are a few books around how do you understand tech. To understand design, you have to go through just two books. One is Design of Everyday Things, which gives you a lot of frameworks on thinking around UX. And the second is Don't Make Me Think by Steve Crow, which talks a lot around usability and UI elements, like how do you make sense that even if your UX is right, people are able to discover the right buttons, discover the readability is good, usability is good, right? So one is UX, the other is usability. If you just cover these two, you should be fine with it, right? So that is basically tools to design a solution. The second is finding analogies. Now, this is very, very important. This is possibly the most important thing and most time-consuming things you will have to do as a PM. And there is a reason for it. Let me get into slightly like on a tangential path. So most of the domains can be classified into two parts. Like they can be ill-structured domains, which are not very structured thinking, not very structured concepts and all. And there are well-structured domains like software engineering. You know, like software engineering, maths, these are very structured. Writing, copywriting, product management, these are ill-structured domains. Now in well-structured domains, like software engineering and all this, you can learn a lot of concepts, algorithms, blah, 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 to solve the problems. And you can map a particular concept to a problem and so on and so forth, right? So concepts help a lot. Case studies or examples help to a certain extent in well-structured domains. In ill-structured domains, both are equally important. You need to learn the concepts that we have covered, but you also need to see the case studies and their nuances. Because if you don't see that, you will always fail at coming at the right nuanced solution. You will even fail to appreciate the nuance within a particular problem or a product, right? Now, there are two ways to do that. The first is you look at the case studies from past or present. The second is you use other products and understand why they work. The first, I see like, and both, by the way, are done to some extent by most of the PMs I know, right? So it's not that people are not doing it. I just feel that people might not be doing it in the right manner, right? So what I recommend you to do going forward is rather than reading, let's say, Youll story or TechCrunch or Twitter or LinkedIn posts, you go after like deep analysis posts. Like Ben Thompson's write like Stratechery, which is a paid newsletter, but it's amazingly detailed when it comes to like FANG or some of the industries analysis, right? Eugene Y, Kevin Koch, like Lenny, in fact, to some extent, have written like very, very deep analysis, long form posts. So if you start building this affinity for long form, deep analysis post, that way you'll be able to build very good product studies, case studies in your sort of mental framework, as compared to you going through LinkedIn posts, which are sort of repurposing the same content everywhere, right? Like if you do analysis on LinkedIn post, you'll realize everybody is reading the same things and telling the same things. And if everybody knows those things, then where's the advantage as a PM, right? The second good source is autobiography of iconic product managers or founders. Like there's Everything Store, Sam Walton autobiography, Ben Horowitz, Hard Things About Hard Things. All these are brilliant resources for understanding how the life cycle of product or industries actually evolve, right? And that is a very good source of knowing that. Make sure that you also cross-verify this, because see, autobiographies are written by people who have some sort of narrative bias. So it's not, don't take it as a source of truth, but there's a lot of good things that you can take out of autobiography, right? And the third is you can build your own thesis by collating various sources. For example, a few years back when I was learning about gamification, I built this thesis on Pinduoduo, which sort of was possibly like after 20 years of duopoly between Alibaba and JD in China, this app came in 2016-17 and just went on to become the second largest app, e-commerce app in China in 2-3 years, right? And this is a fascinating case study around gamification and targeting the lower tier or low cost market, utilizing the industry structure in China, which is like there's a lot of wastage when it comes to production and everything, right? So I would say, like, you do this exercise, you go and try to build this thesis around Pinduoduo, and then you'll realize that building this thesis is much more informative, much more useful to you as compared to like hundreds of blog posts that you read, right? The second is you find analogies using other products, right? Which is like, can you start thinking why Facebook Messenger failed as compared to WhatsApp in first 5 years? Can you think around that? Can you think why Snapchat is struggling right now for advertising revenue? If you start observing these things, don't just read headlines, right? Ask the 5 whys. Okay, Snapchat revenue has declined. Why has that declined? Advertising revenue. Why has that declined? Because of COVID. Why has that declined? The more you ask whys, you'll be able to actually go to the underlying issues and able to understand why they become successful or failure. Why did Facebook, with such a strong distribution, could not make, let's say, Messenger that successful as compared to WhatsApp? Those are fascinating case studies. Around super apps, why does WeChat work, but none of the super apps in India work, right? The moment you start using other products, understanding them, you will build a very, very strong analogy base, and you'll be able to come up with much richer solutions, right? The last one is get creative. Now, I would say if you want to be creative, again, if you ask me, I'm saying 60% of creativity is science, can be learned. 40% is still like art. And if you want to learn creativity, if you want to be creative, you want to come up with original solutions, these are like few things I would recommend. The first is you have to understand creativity, which is like let go of the burden or the nonsense that you have accumulated over the years with you, right? Second, you have to start doing simulations and pre-mortems more. And I'll discuss like how they help. And the third is you have to learn about creativity more, right? So the first is understand creativity, right? And in this one, like, I would just go by the research rather than trying to, push my own agenda. And I was very curious in reading like what research said. And the research is saying that when you conduct the study for 5 years old and then 20 year down the line, you conduct another study and all that, you see that people's creativity actually drops. People are highly creative during childhood. So in a way, like, we grow out of creativity. We are all creative. Most of us are creative in childhood, but we grow out of creativity because our teachers said so, because of specialization and all those things. And some of that is unavoidable, but the point is you have that creative brain to start with. Most of you have the creative brain to start with. It's just that you are telling yourself that I'm not creative, and that is causing most of the harm. So that's the first thing I want you to take when it comes to creativity. The second thing I want you to do, which is totally applicable starting Monday for you when it comes to creativity, is do pre-mortems. So a post-mortem is basically you analyzing why did something fail. A pre-mortem is you asking the question, why would something fail? And this is I think rather than me explaining this, I will let Daniel Kahneman, he is a Nobel laureate who has done a lot of work around this. I will let him explain this.
The biasing technique, it's actually my favorite. Not my invention, it's the psychologist Gary Klein proposed it. And he calls it the pre-mortem. And it describes the procedure for a pre-mortem as follows. So you have a group, a team that is about to produce a decision. They're not yet locked in on the decision, but it's pretty clear where they're going. And at that point, you convene a special meeting, which could be 45 minutes. It really doesn't take very long. And of people who are knowledgeable about this, they could be the team that is actually working on the decision. And either the leader or a facilitator who comes for that particular purpose will introduce the discussion as follows. Assume that we made the decision that we're now contemplating. It is now a year later. It was a disaster. Now, you have a sheet of paper in front of you, write a brief history of that disaster. This is called a pre-mortem. And it turns out that, I think this is a brilliant idea, by the way, this notion of the pre-mortem, because it does the following. When you look at what happens in organizations as they're approaching a decision, they are getting increasingly locked into that decision, especially if the leader of the organization is clearly in favor of it. Dissent is becomes very difficult. In general, by the way, organizations like optimists. Pessimists are almost disloyal in many cases. We really don't like pessimists much. And to be a pessimist about a project very close to the point at which a decision is about to be made is actually taking a significant risk of your popularity, if not worse. What the pre-mortem technique does, which I think is beautiful, is it legitimizes dissent. Actually turn things around. It rewards people for being imaginative in finding flaws in the current plan. Now, not everybody is thrilled with that idea because actually many decision makers and large organizations want optimism. I had a conversation about the pre-mortem actually with the chief of planning in the Israeli military. And he said he had mixed feelings about this because he said, if we knew exactly how much things would cost, we'd never do anything. But so we need that positive illusion in order to achieve something. The balance between illusion and realism, and how much optimism you want, and how much realism you want, that is a major issue. But to be aware of the error, that I think is unquestionably worthwhile.
So, like this is amazing technique, right? And we actually have done pre-mortems on some of the riskiest project I have done in the organizations that allowed me to. And it was very, very fruitful, right? So that is one thing I would ask you to do. The second thing I would want you to do is simulation, which is like, don't just think about why would it fail, but think about what would succeed. And by the way, like if you look, so one of the biggest companies on the earth actually does this simulation in a systematic manner. Can you name that company in chat? One of the biggest companies on the earth, like top 5 or top 10, actually does pre-mortems or simulations. Amazon. Yes. Amazon, working backwards. They ask you to write a PR. They ask you to sort of imagine what the product launch would look like, what kind of questions will people pose. And what they're asking is imagine the successful future and what would it look like, and then walk backwards from it. And while writing this PR, my belief is maybe 50% or more of the people are realizing they can't write a decent PR or PR FAQ. And because of which those projects would not even see the light of the day. Like those documents will not even see the light of the day. And that's an amazing thing that Bezos has inculcated in Amazon, which is like the leadership principles and the PR working backwards and all those things, right? Yeah. So let's move next. The last thing is start learning about creativity, right? Read about Pixar a little bit. Like Creativity Inc. is an amazing book, but if you're a person who consumes video, you can go through some of the interviews of Ed Catmull, some of the interviews of Steve Jobs around sort of Pixar and all that. All those are amazing sort of talks to understand how creativity can be fabricated, right? So for example, Jobs designed the whole Apple HQ in a way that it made people more creative. At least he tried to, right? And so such things happen in a lot of gaming studios. Such things happen in a lot of this animation art studios. And only if we learn more about that, I feel like we'll become more creative as PMs, because they have a lot of tools that make them creative, a lot of brainstorming tools, a lot of organization tools that make them creative. And then definitely, like I started this whole creativity thing with an assertion that maybe we grow out of creativity. Definitely go after this talk by Sir Ken Robinson, which is Do Schools Kill Creativity? This is a very funny talk, a very humorous talk, but you learn a lot on how school education actually sort of kills the creativity within all of us. And we are actually naturally creative, and we just need to wake that part of ourselves by first believing that we can be creative and then sort of working on it, right? But that would be, I would say, most of it. The last thing I said, I'll leave you with one exercise that you have to do starting Monday. Whatever you learned from this or whatever you're going to learn afterwards, start creating checklists. See, the thing about product sense is you can't remember all of what you learned. So you have to build a second brain. And that second brain cannot be a big document or big like Evernote doc or Google Doc. It has to be a small checklist, right? In fact, like some of the most complicated professions like pilots, surgeons. In fact, Atul Gawande, he's a surgeon. He wrote Checklist Manifesto. And he's a big fan of checklists. He says that checklists help you take out the cognitive overload and help you actually think more about the problem or make sure that you don't miss something important. So around product sense on these 6 points, as you start creating more and more checklists, as you create a checklist around doing pre-mortems, as you create a checklist around doing PR, FAQ, as you create a checklist around having a brainstorming session and coming up with creative solutions, or learning about industry, or doing this. If you see this whole session is a checklist of some sort, right? And if you just remember those 6 things, 6 major things in checklist, 3 in problem framing and 3 in solution space, I would say like you would definitely become a much more strong product thinker in the coming months or coming years, right? That's my very strong belief, because believe me, like if you ask me honestly, like my product thinking was not that good when I started. And it's learning about like all these things that has helped me. Like I've constantly gotten like exceeds expectations on product thinking across all the orgs I've worked on, right? That is not true about, say, execution, where I'm not that great, right? So in execution, I think I'm learning more and more of it as I build my own company. But in execution, for example, I'm not great. But in product thinking, these things have helped me, and they are going to help you as well, right? Now, before we go to Q&A, I am going to ask you help me with one more thing, which is like help me with the feedback, and I'll start picking questions one by one from the Q&A, right? Before I even go to there, like I just want to take this opportunity. Just go to PM Curve, do this another thing. I feel a lot of you might find this program very beneficial. So go to it, apply for it today, because tomorrow there is a session around this program overview and Q&A. I will shortlist the folks who apply today. Today only you'll get an invite and all that. And last time when I opened the payments for this first cohort, it got over in like 2 hours. So that's why like I'm saying that go and apply if you just want to, if you actually like the program. Again, coming to the Q&A, which is my favorite part. I will just wrap the survey. Folks, like, give the survey for sure. Like, it is very important for me to understand, like, where things went right, where things went wrong. Okay, I'm going to stop this. And I'm going to take polls. I'm going to take Q&As. So the first question, I think, Ritika, I'll start with this. Is the PM Curve course growth? No, Ritika, so PM Curve courses for existing PMs and entrepreneurs. And because growth is something that every PM or founder has to learn, because if you think of it like when you become a director of product, you have to grow the product as well. You're not just supposed to launch products and all that. So growth is a skill that every PM has to eventually learn, which is why like it's aimed at all PMs and founders. Okay, coming to Atul's question, which is still didn't understand why user researchers don't have the best product sense. What more is needed for good product sense apart from great customer obsession, right? So Atul, I'll go back and start checking. So the first thing is understanding users. When it comes to understanding users, researchers are great. The second thing that we talked about is, let's take one by one, like understanding industry. Researchers don't understand industry, right? Researchers have good problem framing frameworks, by the way. So first and third is check. Industry knowledge is not there with researchers. The fourth thing in solution space, they don't understand tech or design. So they can't enter into the solution space and build those amazing things or build those amazing solutions. The fifth thing is analogies around which products have worked, which have not worked and all that. Researchers, again, don't spend time on that. And the sixth is creativity, on which there is no birthright for PMs, but yeah, I think I would say both are equally qualified. So 3 out of 6 is where researchers don't spend any time, which is why they don't have product sense. Because if you don't understand the industry, you don't understand business models, you don't understand analogies, what has worked, what has not worked, mostly you're not going to make the right decision. And the product sense is all about making the right decision and creating value for the consumers. Right? Sanmeet, I'm going to share this whole thing. I'll just give this link so that people, so you can go to YouTube, you can search for PM Curve. This video and deck both will be available there tomorrow. So do that in case you are looking for this. Great. Next question. Again, I have slight bias for taking some questions around the course, so don't mind that. It's a very simple question. Can we be a part of cohort while transitioning? Teja, if you have already done some beginner PM courses, you can take it. But if you're totally new to PM domain, don't take it. Like if you're planning to crack an interview by doing this course, don't do it. Mahendra has this question. How do I know if I'm getting better at product sense? Right? That's a fabulous question. So Mahendra, the only way to know if you're, so there are a couple of ways to know if you're getting better at product sense. Number one, your first set of solutions or problems that you propose to the team or your manager or your founder, how many of them are getting rejected or modified? So if you are a person with a strong product sense, your opinions would be valued a lot in an organization. People would be eager to listen on what you have to say on a particular subject matter because they know this person makes the right decisions most of the times. So the first thing that you have to look is inside the organization. What is your equity and how often do people debate around your decisions and change your decision, or debate around your solutions and change your solutions, even normal discussions. So that's a very good benchmark to see if you're improving on your product sense on a day-to-day basis. The second is, of course, like you look at your product launches and see how many of them are successful. Are you able to set the right goal and hit them, or are you failing to hit the right goals? Right? Because usually it's a fallacy of you not setting the right goal or you not mapping the initiatives to those goals to hit those goals, right? So these two are, I would say, the best ways to gauge whether you are getting better at product sense. Look internally into your organization on how much people value your opinion, how often are you correct in discussions and debates, and then look at your launches, right? And just think about it a little bit. If you have the best industry knowledge, if you understand users, if you have the tools, you understand tech and design and everything, naturally you will be able to come up with best solutions and best proposals, isn't it? Right? So anything that you do on these 6 fronts that we covered will actually improve your chances of sharing a better solution, sharing a better problem, or launching a better product, right? Next question is from Pushkar. One of the biggest challenges that I face as a great growth PM, how to launch a product in multiple markets. I have to launch a competitive product to a currently ubiquitous product, but what works in North America does not work in Latin and APAC is very different. Again, Pushkar, going back to understanding users, these users, the behaviors and everything is very different. So there is no shortcut. The only thing you can do is identify the differences between users and industries in those markets. If you only do these two, like if you understand the users and the industry structure in these markets, you'd be able to identify your positioning, pricing, and like what sort of features will work in this market. And the rest is an easier thing to do. But to start with, if you want to operate in multiple markets or multiple segments, you have to understand the users and industry in those particular markets or segments. There's no going around that.
So Deepak, sorry, I had to unmute myself. This would have been a longer thing. So I did a customer interview. I do have the market analysis done. I go through a lot of research reports from Frost and Sullivan or Gartner reports as well, just to confirm to the findings that I have had. But the problem is the purchase power parity. And then also what really works in terms of, let's say, SMS-based OTP, if you're trying to replace with something which is more of a modern solution, which is maybe a biometric-based solution, might not be applicable in South Africa because there it's bigger challenge. People tend to delete their apps, banking apps, and I've got this like this morning because of the snatching of phones. People tend to delete their banking app and only reinstall it on the day of getting it paid. So things like that, which just blew my mind. So trying to find a middle path for multiple market is where my biggest challenge lies.
See, I would just say that the prioritization is very important in this case, because if you are parallelly trying to solve this for multiple markets, that might be a disaster. What is your most, like after the current market, like where you have leadership, what is the most attractive market? I would just go after that in the first place. Because like you said, right, the differences are going to be there. So you'd rather prioritize than trying to solve everything. That is one approach. The other approach is understand all markets, but find the ones which are very similar to your current one so that you don't have to modify a lot. Because I see your pain is coming from, I have to modify a lot to enter this market. So try to identify markets where you have to make minimal changes and you can still enter those markets and test your product, right? Those are the only two approaches. You either focus or you sort of copy your product into a market which is very similar to the current market. There is no third option.
Okay, thank you.
That is, yeah. Mahendra has this question. Hi Deepak, how do I know I'm getting better? I have already answered that. She has this question, any tips on writing effective PRDs and setting good direction for team using product sense? So after you have good product sense, like writing PRDs is just very, very natural. Like, see, writing PRDs is a function of two things. You keeping the right decisions into the PRD, and second is you writing English in a fashion that everybody can understand, right? So the second part is not that difficult because we all are good at like speaking and writing English. Most of the people who struggle with writing good PRDs are actually struggling with product sense. So if you work on all the things that I discussed, you'll start putting your industry research, user research, data, all those things into PRDs, and your PRDs will become much more refined as compared to what they are today, right? So that's the only tip, like focus on product sense. PRDs will write themselves. And if you're still not able to write, yeah, just put all your insights to ChatGPT, it will write a PRD for you. Durga has this question, what is more important for a PM, intuitive decision-making skill or database decision-making skill? How can the gut feelings be trusted with implementation? And Durga, data will tell you what is wrong with something. So data should definitely be looked at. But why something is wrong, why are people dropping off at a particular place will only come from user insights. So you have to understand why people are dropping off, why people are not doing this, why people are doing that. Once you understand that, it's as good as intuition. Like, what are you going to do extra with intuition? Because now you know that what is wrong, why is it wrong? You should be able to come up with your own set of solutions without using gut, right? And by the way, like gut usually is very evolutionary, right? So if you are interested in evolutionary biology, you learn that it's all a set of data points. It's like system one thinking. So it's all a set of all the experiences you had in the past, which are coming together to make a decision. So gut is nothing. So you can trust your gut if you have a lot of experience in that area as a PM or product leader, but never trust your gut for something where you don't have much experience, right? Rely on data, rely on user insights in those areas. That would be my 2 cents. Please ask any follow-up question if you have in the chat. I will catch up to that. Aditya has this question. I have 4.7 years of work ex as a software engineer, but no experience as a PM. What are beginner level courses you would recommend to transition into PMs? Very hard question to answer, Aditya. You can start with maybe Next Leap because it's cheaper, and then gradually look at like, but maybe that will get you into a PM role and gradually get into like other courses. Rather courses, I would recommend you go through Cracking the PM Interview by Jackie Bavaro. That book is enough to get you through a PM interview. You don't need to do courses. You don't need to do a lot of things. Do few mock interviews with your colleagues who are PMs, and you should be good to go. The last thing is, so go via the book, Cracking the PM Interview, do some mock interviews, do a lot of mock interviews, and finally try to switch internally. It's very hard to get an external transition in this job market. So try to switch internally, which is a lot more easier because you already have a credibility in the org, right? So those will be my 3 sort of takes on someone trying to become a PM in this market. Tanmay has this question. If you have to work on products like referral, where users actually don't need it, how to apply? Tanmay, I'm not clear about this question. So I'm going to skip this one. See, people don't need something, don't build it, is what I would say. You can't apply product thinking there. Try to build something which people would need. Yeah. Devanjali has this question. In creativity, ultimately it pays to be contrarian, right? Bucking the trend of all that is done in the past. So you bring something of value to the consumers. If feedback has gotten if frameworks is bang on, but product thinking should be more think big and clear how to crack more. Okay. Anjali, there are a lot of questions. Can you come up and tell me what is the most important question you have?
Yeah. So basically, sorry, there was a lot of typos. Basically, what I was saying is, right now, right, I'm in the middle of, like, in my product portfolio, there are products which are, you know, between 10 to 100, 1 to 10, and then completely 0 to 1, right? Now, 10 to 100 or 1 to 10 is something that, you know, you can sort of codify with all of the, you know, steps you gave, right? However, when it comes to 0 to 1, right, where, you know, you are building something that possibly is an industry first. Yeah. The feedback that I get, right, is that, hey, like, your frameworks are bang on, all of your metrics are bang on, like, everything is great, right? But when it comes to actually thinking about the product, which is probably the last part, is the creativity part, right? They're like, okay, you have to think even bigger, right? But nobody is telling you exactly how big you have to think. So everybody is looking at you to think big, and then you're hitting a ceiling because nobody else has done it, or you want to bring a product to market that's completely contrarian, right? Yeah. Then what do you do was my question, right? Like where do you go to build that kind of product sense?
So that's a very like deep question, and I'll take like a couple of minutes to answer that based on what I understand about industrial markets. So the first thing is, see, I think big and contrarian don't go hand to hand. The reason is, think big implies that there is a big opportunity that is lying in the market, which is not contrarian, because most people have to agree to that, right? A contrarian is a Airbnb, where people will be like, okay, it's a very small market. So you get a lot of outsized reward if you are contrarian and that thing becomes big, right? But you can't do both. Like you can't start thinking big and contrarian in the same line. That's the first fallacy. But let me talk to the solutions, right? So the first thing that you'll realize, if you observe like what I did with PM Curve growth course, what I did was, what are the problems? What are the big problems that people have? If you identify those big problems, then it's just a matter of getting to the solutions of those big problems and a lot of solutions to those big problems and then choosing in one of them. Like, is it possible? Is it feasible? Will it definitely work? Or what is the probabilistic model telling me that will it work 90%, will it work 80% and all that, right? So the first is making sure that you have the problems nailed down and then you have some decent solutions to them. That is the first part of the equation. The second part of the equation, which I asked while building PM Curve was, and which you can ask is, how big is the market? Because usually most of the times when people say think big, it's usually go after a bigger revenue, bigger market, bigger revenue stream, isn't it? So how big is the market is a very important part of the equation. So most of the times when people feel that you're not thinking big, it's usually because you are not, your solution or problem does not fit into a large enough market. Right? The moment you do that and you show that, okay, we can actually get to $1 billion revenue by doing this, people will be like, yeah, you are now thinking very bold. You are thinking big. So that would be my take on the feedbacks that you have gotten, which is like, think in terms of larger revenue, larger TAM, larger everything, and then nail down the problems and their specific solutions. Because if you nail down the problems, creativity is all about like getting more and more solutions to them and then prioritizing one of them, which is more original, right? Because creativity is nothing but, can you come up with an original idea, which does not exist in the world? And how do you come up with an original idea? Like, you don't come up with an original idea by saying that, okay, I now will block an hour to come up with an original idea. You work with problems, right? Feynman had this famous thing, which is he was like, I'm always keeping 12 problems in my head because I don't know when the solution for one problem is going to come. And these 12 problems are original. So it has to be an original solution to those problems, right? So I would say if you nail down the problem and the market size, the solutions or original solutions will arrive, because what you seek is seeking you. That's a quote from Yoda or I think Rumi. And that is so true about creativity. You have to seek it and then it will come to you, right? Again, I'm getting philosophical, but I hope that helps you.
Yeah, it does. Basically, what I heard you saying is that, okay, when you're thinking about the market mapping, think how much bigger it can get. Just don't silo yourself into a specific market because that's what you think the customer needs. And then once you have the market mapped out, then start small, get iterative, and then eventually you are going to hit on that 0 to 1.
Yeah, because the nuances will always lie in the smallish, like things that don't scale. You'll talk to consumers, you'll understand what are the problems they have. The nuances, without nuances, there is zero value in product development. And you can't get to those nuances without thinking deeply about it, right? So start with a big market and then sort of think of a wedge to enter that market, figure out that wedge and figure out the way to expand, right? That's growth 101 for you right there.
Perfect. Thanks.
Going to the next one, Madhav asked, like, is it recommended to be working in some company on a product in order to get max benefit of this course? Madhav, not necessarily. Like, you don't need to, because like I said, the capstone project is, I'm giving you real data. So it's almost like you're solving a real problem in a real company setup. So you don't need to be in a company to get max benefit from this course. Rakesh has this question. Okay, Rakesh, this 2.5 months long, I don't want to take a lot of time from the group around that. Yeah, it's almost 3 months long. And Priya, you can share the link for the course also, if Rakesh is interested. Tomorrow is a Q&A session, by the way. So just go and apply and leave everything to me. I'll make sure you get all your answers in that session. Darsh has this question: how product owners working as proxy for product teams in other countries can benefit from PM Curve? Again, Darsh, question for tomorrow's session. Go and apply. I will definitely answer that. I don't want to take time from this group on those questions. Mayank has this, I'm from CX domain. To develop product skills, I'm doing a side project by working on building a product with 4 more people. My only suggestions, yeah, I think that's a great path, Mayank. Just build the product, get first 1,000 users, first 100 users, and that is more than enough to sort of get you into a product role. I think whatever you're doing is actually right. The product is also right. If you have any specific question, you can drop me a message on LinkedIn and I would be happy to help. But right now it looks like you're on the right track. Abhishek has this question. Can a senior BA transition to PM role? Yes, Abhishek. I was in business intelligence and I moved to a PM role. And the background of data actually makes me a better PM. So definitely go for it if you're thinking about moving into a PM role. And you can directly crack a PM or senior PM role. It happened with me. It can happen with you as well. The next one is Prashant. As a PM, how to deal with developers on the timelines they give? Again, I think I'll take just 30 seconds to answer this because this is not related to product sense, but helps. See, Prashant, you have to understand tech first. So go and understand tech, read Tech Simplified. It's very cheap investment, by the way. I'm not even selling my book. It does not make money for me, by the way. It's totally like community service in some sense. Go and read that book. Once you start understanding the nitty-gritties of tech, this question will be gone. By the way, book also answers how to deal with developers under timelines and all that. So this question arises from the fact that you don't understand tech. Once you understand tech, once you start sympathizing with developers, this question disappears in totality, right? So just do that. Tanmay ka question around referral, I'm going to repurpose because he sent me a message, which is like, referral is usually needed by the companies, isn't it? Like, why would customers need referrals, right? So it's a business first thing. So how do you apply product thinking to referrals? So Tanmay, like couple of things that will definitely help you in applying product thinking to referrals is, first, study the referrals of Chinese products. They have built leaderboards, they have built variable rewards, they have built a lot of things around referrals, right? So adding gamification to referral can become fun for people. It can also become rewarding for people. So add gamification to referral and users might start having fun with your referral product. And like people play games even if there is no direct benefit. So even if your referral is fun to check or like it provides something within the product, some sort of reward, people would be interested in doing that. So think of like, rather than thinking on like customers need it or not need it, think of how can you make this useful or interesting for the end users, right? And if you can make it useful or interesting for the end users, it will work, right? Even if it is a company first strategy, right? Again, Pushkar has this question, what made you leave your 9-to-5 job and launch this course? Pushkar, again, education has been a recurring theme of my life. I recently had a daughter and it definitely sorts out some of the priorities for you. I think because I come from a background, like I come from underprivileged background, the first 10 years of my career was more around sort of building that cushion and all, and credibility. Now I have credibility, I can launch a course. But like I said, this is not the only product I'm working on. I'm working on a couple of more products, which are under the wraps. So in a way, like I'm starting my entrepreneurship journey. And this course is like the first thing that has come out of that. But there will be a lot of benefits for PMs and hopefully for K-12 audience, because the other product is for K-12. From me not doing a job this year or maybe next year also. Yeah. Aranjit has this question. Are people who start in PM at any disadvantage compared to those who have transitioned from junior? Aranjit, no, not much, but think of it like this. They have devoted 2 years, 3 years of their life learning something. So they would definitely be better at few things as compared to you. But that does not mean you can't make up. Like you can learn design, you can learn data, you can learn engineering, right? So you have the advantage of having more number of years of PM experience. They have the advantage of knowing something because they have spent a portion of their time into those jobs, right? No disadvantage as such, but of course they will be better at few things as compared to you. Cool, amazing question, folks, and thanks for asking all these questions. I have found like the questions are the real test of me understanding a topic, right? And just on that note, I'll just end this session. Again, go to PM Curve, check, apply for the course. All the questions that you have will be answered tomorrow, right? So just have a patience for 24 hours. And then you can take a decision on whether to continue with that or not. Again, thanks for joining for 2 hours. Thanks for staying for 2 hours. It was a wonderful session with all of you. Feel free to message me for any questions you may have after the session or around the session, right? Great. Thank you.